We have an action alert that's been available to the participants today, and we encourage you to help support us in that effort. Undocumented immigrant children are also at risk, as we know. Many immigrant children came to this country with their families when they were small children. Although they were raised and graduated high school here, they remain undocumented. Lacking any avenue to higher education, they will likely fall prey to unscrupulous employers as they are forced to take jobs in the shadow economy. Help us to end the risk that increased enforcement will have for undocumented immigrant children by supporting the DREAM Act. And we also have a sign-on letter that we're organizing right now as well. So in conclusion, enforcement programs create a chilling effect on crime victims who our criminal justice system has originally been designed to protect. Unscrupulous employers, spouses, and other criminal perpetrators are protected from prosecution when their victims cannot turn to law enforcement for help. Enforcement measures should be considered carefully and exercised centrally such that local law enforcement's commitment to community safety is not overshadowed by their duty to enforce immigration laws. Reforms are needed that encourage and allow immigrant communities to safely access law enforcement assistance and protection. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And before I turn over to Woolsey for her comments and questions, an interesting phenomenon, you brought that up in your testimony. There's a lot of linkages. The linkages being established now with 32,000 immigration detentions happening yearly, if not more now. The linkage is being established is with the framers and the writers of 1070 of Arizona, a very, very interesting linkage with the private prison industry. One can be cynical, and we should be on that issue, but I think when you raise, it's the fastest growing detention population now, certainly in the state of Arizona. And it's kind of curious to me that the private prison industry would help write the law and key people in that working for the governor's office. I find it curious and interesting. Ms. Woolsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman Grijalva, for hosting this hearing. And you have to know that this is a champion for fighting for the rights of all immigrants. We are so lucky he is one of our members. Thank you. I want to express my appreciation, Matthew and Heidi, because I know how brave you are to come here and do this. This is not easy when you're a young person to come and talk to a bunch of stuffy adults, but you did a great job. Our country has a responsibility to humanely enforce our immigration laws. And this means protecting the rights and needs of children and of families. In my congressional district, I represent the two counties north of San Francisco across the Golden Gate Bridge. You get halfway across the bridge and you're in Woolsey country. So you'd think, I mean, that's Marin County. It's one of the most affluent areas in the country. You'd think that because it's a very progressive county that, we'd be immune to any of this kind of immigration raids, but no way. In 2007 and 2008, we experienced how immigration raids created widespread fear and panic, especially among young children. The ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents, stood at school buses grabbing adults after their kids got on the bus to go to school. The children went to school absolutely traumatized and didn't go back to school for weeks because they were absolutely afraid that when they came home after school, their parents wouldn't be there, or their adult, sometimes it wasn't a parent. So that's why I introduced, and thank you for mentioning it, the HR 3531, which is called the Help for Separated Children Act. We call it the HELP Act. It requires ICE to follow humane enforcement procedures with protections, absolutely protecting families in all immigration raids. The bill increases protections for children in child welfare systems and it ensures that detained parents can continue to make decisions about the welfare of their children. You've reinforced that, all four of you, in your testimony, and I thank that very much. Thank you very much, and thank you, Kavita, for saying that you're working on getting more support for the bill. It's important. The more pressure you put on members and the more co-sponsors I have on the bill, the more certain it is to be able to come forward. So thanks for your testimony. I have a lot of questions, but do you think I should wait until others have done their opening remarks?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Ms. Moore, any opening remarks?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Honorable Raul Grijalva. This is about as close as I am going to get to Arizona, sitting here next to you. Because I want to place myself in any kind of jeopardy of being denied my humanity or rights as a citizen. I think the thing that occurs to me is the follow-up from our other hearing, where we heard some pretty grim testimony with respect to what has happened to women with these ill-advised immigration laws that undermine federal jurisdiction. But to hear and read the testimony about what happens to children is extremely chilling when you consider that this country is going to depend upon the children, our future. As many as 3 million right now in the country that are born in the United States of undocumented immigrants, but they're born here and they're citizens by virtue of our 14th Amendment to the Constitution. And here we are, so concerned about the illegal immigration of terrorists when we are rearing and creating terror in children by subjecting them to the trauma. We've heard the testimony from the American Psychological Association. When we are traumatizing children, when we are our future workforce that needs to be educated, we are undermining their educational opportunity and replacing it with bitterness and trauma and separation. This might be a terrible unintended consequence of undermining what our future interests are as Americans. And so I think that this is a very, very important hearing to observe and acknowledge that. Certainly, an unintended consequence of this Arizona law could be to promote trafficking in human beings and trafficking in children. Imagine being a pedophile out there who wants to traffic in children and finding all these vulnerable children in Arizona that they can prey upon because people can't call the police or take advantage of police services. Imagine the thieves and the robber barons and the employers who will receive ill-gotten gain from such a law. And imagine the hardening of these children's attitudes toward law enforcement when the police become an instrument of inhuman enforcement of immigration laws. Imagine the burden of detention centers that are already not fit for human detention when we, in some willy-nilly, frenetic way, try to gather people up and arrest them in an enforcement-only strategy, not trying to sort out those people who are criminals or deserve some deportation in some respect, with those who are here, were attracted here by work, and where there would be severe hardship on children with the family breakup. So I'm really happy that we had this. I'm glad to call myself a co-chair of this event. As Congressman Grijalva knows, I have about 5 different things. You hear my beeper going off here. 5 different things that I'm required to do. But there is no way I was not going to. I canceled my flight so that I could make sure that I had the opportunity to be here with you all today.
Thank you.
And bless you all. And make Arizona safe for me to visit someday. Right.
Mr. Polis, please.
Mr. Chairman, is this our opportunity to ask questions of the witnesses?
It's up to you, Advocate. I gave an opportunity for Ms. Moore needed to leave
I do have some, thank you.
I
do have some questions of the witnesses. I also want to emphasize that there's over 100,000 children in this country that were affected by parental deportation between 1997 and 2007. And as we heard in the powerful testimony of Ms. Portugal, that can be very difficult for children of any age to have to worry about that every day. My first question, for Ms. Portugal, you and your friends, is that you probably don't have the highest opinion of Sheriff Arpaio, is that correct? Now, so if you were to witness a crime or see something bad happen, would you be maybe hesitant to kind of go and tell Sheriff Arpaio or his agents, given what he's done to your family?
Well, like I said, it's really hard for me to have anger against him for separating my family and disappearing on his job. But I do have some words I would like to tell him. But sometimes I think I should just keep them inside of me and not for anger.
And most of those words are not necessarily, they're not words that would, let's say, help him do his job or catch criminals. They're words of a more personal nature, right?
Oh yeah, because he shouldn't be so racist against a color, because nobody gets to choose the color they want to be.
And you're not alone in that. If you look at the crime statistics from Arizona, you'll see that across Arizona, crime has gone down 12% in the last 10 years, and yet in Maricopa County, in Sheriff Arpaio's jurisdiction, crime has increased 58%. Because you're not alone, Heidi, in not wanting to go to a sheriff that you don't trust and that you are angry with. If you were to witness something bad going on, or God forbid, if something happened to you or someone harmed you, there are many residents of Maricopa County that would not feel comfortable sharing that with the sheriff. One of the great things that's led to a reduction in crime across Arizona and our country has been what we call community policing, and that means when police officers and sheriffs work with their communities, because if you were to witness something, a capable law enforcement professional would want to have a good relationship with you and know that you could trust going to them. Unfortunately, Sheriff Arpaio has not only broken those relationships, but many of the residents of his own jurisdiction live in fear of their own sheriff. Our immigration system is contrary to our value as Americans, and I hope that you've seen enough of good Americans that you know that the Americans are good people, and many of your brothers and sisters and friends are good people. And like any large group of people, there's a few bad ones, and occasionally they rise to positions of authority. We, of course, as a society, will ultimately do the right thing, but sometimes it takes time. And I hope that the residents of Maricopa County wake up and say, we don't like this rising crime rate. Sheriff Arpaio has led to a huge crime wave in Maricopa County. And we need to get real about enforcing our laws and encouraging our communities to participate in the process of keeping our communities safe. My next question is for Mr. Pereira. I heard that you were in a play, Tears of Lives, and I would like you to briefly describe that play for us.
The play is about a type of family with a dead mother from cancer, and one normal day the father goes to work and the pilot catches them, and the children are finding and looking away, finding a way to take food on the table and how to take care of the little kids, because there's 3 kids. One's a teenager, one's the oldest, and one's a little boy. And I played the little boy, which his name was Carlitos.
And I would appreciate it, Mr. Pereira, if you're able to, you and some of your friends could follow up and get the script of that play to my office. I would love to see that play. And maybe someday somebody could bring it to Washington, D.C. To produce it. But, when the misdeeds of a sheriff lead to this type of response in a community, clearly there's something wrong there when residents live in fear of their own authorities that should be there to protect them. We as a society have done something wrong, and I applaud you finding a creative outlet, a creative political outlet to voice your views and share that story with others. I thank you, and I yield it back.
Thank you, Mr. Polis. Great questions and great information. Very much appreciated. Ms. Woolsey, then I'll introduce our colleague, Sheila Jackson, who has just joined us. Ms. Woolsey is going to ask a question, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Jackson Lee for comments.
One of the things I would love to tell you, when we had the ice raids in my district, the school principals that were responsible for the young people who were so traumatized, which they absolutely were, reported to me and reported to the city government about how unfair they thought it was and what a trauma it was to these children. So we brought one of the principals to D.C. as a witness for a hearing on my subcommittee, workforce protection, about how this affects the workforce, because that's the way it was my angle. The very next day, when the principal went back to her school in San Rafael, California, they had another ice raid. And of course I called and challenged and said, what's, retaliation? Oh no, there was no connection. I mean, this is, so when you young people tell us that you don't trust, the people that are supposed to be protecting you, believe me, I sometimes don't either, so I appreciate that in you. What I'd like to know is from you, Heidi, because I didn't hear your whole testimony, and if you're repeating, forgive me. How did you find out that your parents had been taken away?
Well, I was sleeping. It was around 5 or 6:30 in the morning when my sister was on the bed crying and said that she overheard my dad talking with my brother's babysitter. She put the phone on speaker because at that time we could hear a phone call through 2 phones. We put it on speaker, we both hear what my dad was talking about. And then we decided to talk with my dad and figure out what was going on. But he promised us that she would be back the next day, but she wasn't. So my sisters and brothers were really upset. They started crying because they wanted her mother. But it was really painful to tell them, well, she'll be the next day and keep on lying to them until she came home. But it was really heartbreaking because we saw her with a broken home.
So did you have any interaction with her when she was away from you? Or did you not know when she would be back?
Well, the first day that she was taking her back to her she called us at the house phone, so we were able to talk with her, and she told us at least a little bit more information about what happened to her. And then my little baby brother, Danny, was able really heartbreaking to see him because she couldn't touch him or hug him. So my dad, she wanted to see me and my sister and brother, but we weren't able because my dad said he didn't want to accept her anymore.
So, Matthew, where does your compassion come from? Do you know families that have been separated?
I know families, but nothing has happened to me. We're lucky enough that we're still together. I'm one of the children that are scared that when they're done with school, no one's going to pick you up, or when you go to the groceries. And, well, I'm really scared. And we're just waiting what's going to happen next.
Ms. Suarez, what does that do to a kid's learning ability when they're in school?
It interferes with their concentration. How can you be thinking about your schoolwork? Although, excuse me, I should put this on. The Urban Institute did the only real study that we have on the ice rates. And what they found was that there was tremendous anxiety and depression, rise in anger, symptomatology in kids, which of course interferes with learning. But that schools became the one safe zone for kids.
Yes.
In many ways. So that was a really interesting, unexpected finding. That many schools did a really good job of trying to kind of be this one organized space. A lot of kids, when their parents were deported, also lost, if they remained, lost the place that they were living in. They were insecure around eating because their poverty rates went way up. So in addition to all the psychological symptoms, they also had much more food insecurity and much more insecurity around where they were going to live. So the one safe place was school. But, they weren't concentrating necessarily on learning. So there are all sorts of...
But in our experience, the young people didn't even want to leave their house to go to school. I mean, they did after a few weeks because they're young and have to learn and want to. But the immediate thing was, I'm staying close to home. And the schools knew it, and they did everything they could to fill the gap. So, Mr. Chairman,